This is my life.
Alright, hi Miss Connor.
Hi Miss Connor.
So we're going to get started on our duo discussion about our essay and our discussion on epistemology. So the first thing I was going to talk about is, like, what do you think about this whole topic?
Oh, almost cussed. I don't know. I think it's really hard.
It's a hard concept to understand, especially because, like, in the journals, I felt like a lot of the questions that we were getting were, like, I felt like I answered them in the previous question. Like, it said, like...
a lot of them redundant, kind of, but
right.
Also just, like, different. I don't know how to explain it.
It took a lot of thought for me. But now that I've been, like, researching it a lot, it's like, been helping me a lot. Especially with the new way that you've set up the outline. It's a lot easier than having to answer all of those questions that you kind of feel like you're saying the same thing on how knowledge is acquired and stuff. But I think the craziest part about this is the, like, polar opposite theories that come up. So, like...
that's not even the hardest part. The hardest part is when they theorize about knowledge because of God. So
right, because you
know how to conquer that whole topic.
They even... Okay, so in one of my research parts, I put the philosopher Gottfried Leibniz. He hoped to escape the epistemological confines of the mind by constructing knowledge of the external world, the self, the soul, God, ethics, and science out of the simplest, inaudible ideas possessed innately by the mind. So, like, just that sentence in itself takes a lot of breaking down. Because it's like, okay, the external, the self, the soul, what's the difference between self and soul? God, and it's like all of those are like ridiculous topics to even begin to compromise. And then, like it says, in particular, he thought the world was knowledgeable. And then it was one of those words, I don't necessarily know how to pronounce it. It's priori. You remember hearing about this in her PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And
I had some theories on that too.
Right, through an analysis of ideas and derivations done through logic. So, I mean, that was probably one of the most interesting parts to me because it's like the propositional knowledge are the two types of them, which is the priori and the posteriori, empirical or non-empirical. And then, so like in the first one, it says where knowledge is possible independently of an experience. And the other one's like you can only acquire it if you've experienced. So then the priori or non-empirical is talking about how you use reason and logic based on other experiences and you connect and you use your mind.
Yeah, interaction.
Right. And then with the other one, it's like it's only possible with subsequent and certain sense experiences in addition to the use of reason. So first you have to experience it and then you have to reason. Which, I mean, for some reason, like, I agree with both even though they conflict.
They don't conflict.
I think they conflict because in this one, it just says requires only the use of reason, and this says in addition to the use of reasons from certain senses. So can you come up with something? Can you know something using only reason and no prior experience?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, what's an example of that? That was, like, my hardest part, is trying to find an example of that.
A prior experience, like, you just using prior experience and reason?
Yeah, but, like, that's what
fire's hot, so anything that's on fire is going to be hot. Anything that's glowing red is hot.
Right, but that's using the empirical, which means from certain sense experiences in addition to reason. But in the non-empirical, it says knowledge is possible independently of, prior to any experience. So that's where I'm like having this problem with the distinction. And then to find philosophers that think some way about epistemology is easy. To find philosophers that think a way that you agree with as far as epistemology goes, that's hard. And then
I'm not choosing any that I agree with or disagree with. I'm just choosing them and then saying what I think about their theory.
That makes sense, but kind of like in this part of, so like how does this philosopher align with your philosophy?
Yeah.
So
I just said the same thing. Like for philosopher one, I did. I don't know. I think I did Plato or whatever, and then I just said like I don't agree with his philosophy because mine does this. So I'm just gonna do that again. But see, that's what I'm saying is like I feel like this is redundant compared to, because in every paragraph you're gonna have to say if you disagree or agree.
Okay, well, this is how I understood it as, because this one says philosopher number 3. That is in opposition.
Oh yeah,
with
that one you'd have to.
So that one's where you're opposing and you say, this is why I don't believe what this guy says. But these ones on how it aligns. How is it parallel? How do you find similarities? It doesn't mean...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I still did it, like, even if it wasn't directly correlated to my philosophy. And then I said, well, this is a like mine because... And this one's different because he thinks that reason is only...
Okay, so you compare and contrasted in the first 2 philosophers.
Yeah, because it asks you to. It says, how does this align with your philosophy?
Yeah, how does it... I don't know. The way I defined align in... It's down here.
I feel like yours is different than mine.
I just doubled this because I needed more research on mine, so...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I still feel like yours is different. Is this why you only got up to here?
Yeah, that's all I've done thus far. I didn't finish this, but...
Yeah, I feel like it on mine... I don't have my computer in front of me, but I feel like it says it's different. But yeah, I just did, like... Because I think at the bottom of the outline, it's like in each paragraph, it asks you, what is your philosophy on this topic or something like that?
A question to you, Ms. Connor, is... So I got my outline off of the Week 7, Module 3. It says revised outline for epistemology. Okay. I just wanted to... I started with that one.
Yeah, that's the one I did too. Watch, go down. Yeah, it's right there. How does this philosopher align with your philosophy? So I did that, like I answered that question.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, well...
This aligns with this, yeah. And then you gave an example.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I did the same thing for the second.
See, I haven't even gotten to how it's aligned, but like the ones I chose specifically because they kind of align with it, so I can write about it.
Yeah.
But like even like an example here, I put so.
Honestly, the ones that I picked philosophers that have a very like basic understanding of, or did like a kind of overview blanket statement of philosophy on epistemology, because I'm not well versed in it, so.
You don't know. You can't make a well-versed.
Yeah, I'm not gonna compare like myself to Aristotle's crazy nonsense.
Right. With this guy.
Compared to Plato's thoughts of how knowledge is acquired through playing with a ball.
Yeah. With this one, it says in particular, this guy thought that the world. Wait, hold on. So.
There's no priority.
Right. So, for example, if someone claims that the sky is blue, this is only true if the subject of the odd. Oh wait, no, I'm down here. So, first it says. His belief of truth is unique in comparison to other philosophers because he believed that one can bypass problems with intuitive notion of truth, at least for the moment. Truth, according to Leibniz, is simply the proposition in which the predicate is contained in the subject.
See,
but like, okay, so in English, you know what a predicate is.
Yeah.
And you know what a subject is. So all he's saying is, like, when you say the sky is blue, this is only true if the subject, the sky, is actually the predicate blue. That's what he says truth is.
Yeah.
And it's like so simple, yet so true. Because it says whatever statement you make you can figure out if it's true if you just go back and look at the subject and predicate. That simple.
Yeah.
And so that's why I went with this guy. Because I was like, you know what? It sounds confusing when you read it really fast, but when you think about it, it's actually simple.
Yeah.
So I did that guy, and then I've been like searching because there's all different kinds of theories, and so there's like belief, justification, of course, and then like there's like a principle of logic, a solid principle of logic that means like if you say one thing, if you say the opposite of that thing, it cannot be true in logic. That's what a solid principle. But these philosophers just go and come up with ideas, and they prove that it's not true, and it like just makes me question all of life in itself. Like, I don't even know how I live. I'm like.
That's what I was, because it was like one of the. I think it was like St. Augustine something, and there's like a medieval one, or medieval epistemology philosophy, and it's just like only the knowledge we have is only what God gives us. Like, He chooses how much we know.
See,
which
that's
is
hard.
like, yes,
hard
that's true, because like...
That's what you believe in your faith?
No, like if God intends for you to stumble upon a book, like you will, kind of thing. But it's also like, that's really not true. Because you have free will.
Yeah, because God gave us free will.
So...
But,
It's really hard, and I'm like, but that, like, my beliefs aren't the same as everyone else's beliefs. Like, Catholicism and Christianity are, like, I don't know. There's God, like, which God? What God are you talking about? Are you talking about, like, God in the Christian
Or are you just
faith?
talking about
God
in general, the
in
creator
general?
of whatever you
to
don't
me,
know
somebody
who he
named
is?
Saint somebody is Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
So Catholicism isn't necessarily the same as Christianity in some aspects. So I'm like, I don't even want to tackle that.
I'm the same way. Like, as far as religion goes, another thing was I was gonna say in this first part of our essay, it's like actually really hefty. Like, it doesn't seem like it, but up here,
one?
I haven't even started it because of how I realized. So when it says like, how do we know and what is knowledge? Like, that's where we have to cover justification, belief, internalism, externalism, like all that stuff has to be up there, because if you think about it, that's the main concepts of epistemology. I'm not done with this. I haven't even look at this.
I didn't do that. I just introduction of epistemology. I said like what it was and how it's a branch and whatever, and then I looked up the definition of epistemology, and then on how do we know, I put some philosophies on the limits of knowledge. And I put some, like, nonsense from my journal. And then I put what is knowledge. I looked up the definition of knowledge. I didn't put any of the other stuff.
I don't know. That's just
because I'm going to talk about... Because justification... I think I might have used justification, and I might have used knowledge in two different parts.
In your philosophers?
No, in that one.
Oh, okay,
like, as research. But I didn't cover, like, all of the priori stuff.
That's where I'm going to, like, maybe brush over it up here.
Add to that.
Yeah, I might brush over it up here, but then I'm gonna...
How did you do your in-text citations? Because I got all of mine wrong.
Okay, so last week I had gotten some wrong, and the main thing that I had... So did you get your out-of-text citations right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think she didn't work on them.
The main thing that she was telling me that I was messing up is like, well, one of them, she looked it up, and I had...
Dude, you're parodying like 7 people's thing.
Just yours and Andres's.
And Jesus's.
I didn't know I was editing Jesus's.
Yeah, he said you were today.
Well, he didn't ask me, so if I can't get it to him by tomorrow, I don't know what to tell him. Okay, I'm gonna try and edit Andres's tonight though, because I have work. Is
his done?
Yeah.
Dang.
I know, we suck.
Well, I'm gonna probably finish mine tomorrow, and then I'll send it to you so you can do it for your second period.
Did you see this? I didn't see this.
Oh, what is that?
That's our discussion, dude. We're looking at our grade currently.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, so we need to discuss the questions.
I feel like we kind of did. Just no.
Okay, anyways, so with the in-text citations, it's mainly just put the author's name in. And that's it. If there is no author, that's then and only then is when you go to the article. So basically, what I've discovered, if you don't really know what you're doing with it, but you know how to do the regular citations, is just to do the regular citations and leave parentheses with in-text, then go back and just copy the first, it's going to be the first piece of text that's there. Whether it be the article name, the name of the author, whatever's available to you, that's what you're going to be using. Because, like, in some of them, there is no author, but, like, in the encyclopedia that I'm using, there's always an author, so that's what makes it easy. And then with...
Are you using... Oh, I know which one you're using. You're using the encyclopedia one.
Yeah, the, like, IEP or whatever.
Yeah, I've been using the Britannica one. It's not one that she recommended, but it seems to be pretty knowledgeable. And I've checked the... Like, I've did the research on Britannica, and then I've aligned it with that on the other one. But this one, it just... I don't know, the layout's just easier for me to follow.
That makes sense. This one actually took me a long time, and it's still hard for me to do. Especially with the fact that, like, if I look up... Epistemology.
It's so,
Plato. I know. Plato.
It's ridiculous. Like,
how much?
We cannot cover all of this.
I know.
Like,
When
I sat down and tried to read a full article and like pick out the pieces I would use. I gave up.
I just
I don't
skim
know anything
through
what
until
they're
I
saying.
find a word that like sounds right, and I'm like, yeah, this area I'm gonna read now. Okay, still don't get it, but
I just look for philosopher names, and then I'm like, oh, okay, let's see what this dude said, and then sometimes I'm like, all right, yeah, I agree with that. Or
even
I'll
if you
put
go to
in
that dude's page, like it's hard to find epistemology.
Well, that basic of philosophy one, it's working for me now. The philosophy basics.
Oh, same. That started working for me too.
Yeah.
But anyways.
But that was hard to find too.
So for in-text,
I literally went through every single name on that list on the drop-down menu and found nothing on it. Like maybe 2 things for epistemology. So I was like, right, this isn't working. I'm going back and doing something else. And so I did. But I think I'm like on my second philosopher or third philosopher. Oh no, yeah, second philosopher.
Yeah, I'm about there too. But
how many words does this have to be?
There's not a word limit, but...
Oh, there's a sentence limit, though. Or a sentence count.
Yeah,
57?
she says...
Oh, way more than that.
I don't remember what it is. I'll have to go back and check. But she said that, like, it doesn't have to be... She's not going to go through and count our sentences, but...
What's this? Is that it?
Oh, yes. So
66?
66 plus is going to be like an A. I think that... It's not that she's going to go through and count if we have 66 sentences.
It's just so us
that's just for us
make
to...
sure it's bulky enough to make up 25 pages.
After it's over, it's for us to be like, did I include enough? Was I thorough enough? Kind of thing.
There's, like, on some places, I'm like, yeah, that made, like, just putting, like, a regular paragraph with just the 4 steps is, like, enough for me. Like, it seems pretty thorough and, like, but on other
definitely.
ones, it takes me, like, that step like 3 times over. Like that thing 3 times over.
Yeah, that's kind of me right now. I copied and pasted the research, example, explanation, and commentary twice in one certain philosopher.
Yeah.
Because there's one part of the philosopher of what he believes in epistemology. I'm gonna give an example of that, and then there's another one, and I gotta.
Here's my other question: is that like when I was looking for philosophers, I didn't directly find their own quotes and words. I found what other people said about their own theories, about their theories.
Yeah, and so that's
like in that encyclopedia one, there's not like quotes about what they said directly, not all the time, but it's like they theorized that. So I've been using that, but I don't know if that's the same.
I get you.
I guess it's still research. It's just not a direct. It's not from the word. It's not a first-hand source.
Right.
Obviously it's gonna be a second source, but this is like a fourth off source.
What I found in some of my research, the people, like, in this encyclopedia, they sometimes quote books that the philosophers have written.
Yeah.
So that helps, which I can just, in turn, quote the book. But if we're gonna be citing the website,
yeah,
I think for us to quote the website about when it talks about what the philosopher was known for,
yeah,
that obviously knows more than we are, and if we're citing that, that's where we got the information. We didn't get it from a book that they wrote.
So it's still okay?
I think it's okay because that we're not citing this philosopher's book or just this philosopher himself. We're actually citing the author of this article that is written about this philosopher.
Yeah.
So it's just like a lot of work.
Really, really hard.
Yeah, so I gotta go complete this, but I just had like a couple. It takes me a while, especially with these. My thought process goes backwards, I feel. So I start filling out different things in different places, and then I read it all together and make sure it flows. I swear I read this thing over like 30 times.
I decided just to do the full outline, like in complete sentence, and copy and paste it because.
Yeah, it'll be easier. It's easier that way because then you really are only worried about self-editing.
I go through and like put it together, I can add like
connecting
not
sentences.
So much fluff, but more commentary and explanation because I'm like, oh, I know what I was saying there, and now I have more thought on it.
Yeah.
And I can add more sentences to it.
As long as you have the meat of your essay in there, then you can kind of put around the fat.
Garnish it.
That. Yeah, garnish it and put some seasoning.
But I gotta really do better on my grammatical errors this time because,
Yeah, I don't know if you want to edit mine again.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll do it again.
Okay.
Yours are easy to edit. Honestly, you know what the hell you're doing.
Honestly, not really. But another thing I was gonna say is, what did you think about this week's journal? Like, besides the fact that it was redundant, like,
I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, oh, this is going to, like, for the last essay, it was really helpful because I was like, oh yeah, like, I have my own personal theory on this, but I have no idea of epistemology.
It's like, what can people know? Okay, so then you go in on it, and it's like, how is knowledge acquired? Okay, what is knowledge? There's so many different things. But
well, the only question I don't understand, so like on the second question in the outline, I think it's how do we know?
Mm-hmm.
Is that like, I don't know if that was the question, but it was something weird, and I was like,
yeah,
I don't know. This wasn't even in the journal.
Yeah, you had sent me that, how do we know? And then, so break down that question, what are you asking me? Like, be more specific. I was kind of thinking the same thing, but like, I started to answer that one here.
Like, how do we know what we know?
Yeah, so like, I put, the question often posed in epistemology is, how does one acquire knowledge? That's how I took how do we know.
Okay.
How do we know is, how do we get knowledge? How does one person know
Well, I was
something?
going to put that justification there and say, like, how do we know it's knowledge? Oh, because it's justified through research and evidence making it validated.
That too. I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Connor, but I kind of think that this question has given us an open door to go towards, like with you saying, we know that it's knowledge because of this, and I can say, knowledge, we understand things and we gain knowledge by this. This is how we know things. So like, you think of it.
It's just really difficult.
I know, because it's the most simple words ever. It's not like you're using big words. It's like the most simple words.
I thought this was going to be easier. Like, I thought that as we went through, like, the branches were going to be easier, but I don't know about that.
Me too. Like, I'm really worried about metaphysics. Because ethics... Metaphysics, I think, is like science. Like...
Oh, but that's easy. Because that's proven through evidence, like the scientific method.
I know, but it's also like the afterlife and like stuff like that.
Yeah, but those haven't
obviously
been proven or disproven.
Theories. Yeah. I guess
I think what is the justification is that there's real hard evidence. Like, you can say that you saw a unicorn and you can believe in unicorns, but until you bring me a unicorn, I'm not gonna believe you.
No, I agree. And what I was gonna say is I think we're slowly graduating to the topics that are easier to explain. Not necessarily easier to understand or easier topics, but like in what is philosophy?
I hope so.
Like in what is philosophy? That was killing us. We were like, what is philosophy? I don't know.
That one was easier for me.
That was hard for me. And then now in epistemology, what is knowledge?
You
like,
see,
how do you know anything?
Sometimes I'm really like... Sometimes when I'm defining questions like that, I give like rock solid evidence, like, oh, Webster says this. And then other times I'm like, well, philosophically, this is what I believe. So I have to like mix both of those sides of me together, so it's like yin and yang mixing in my essay, and it's really hard to understand sometimes.
Same, because you're
so I'm like, well, Webster says that this is what it is, and I'm just telling you what the rock hard evidence is, but logically for me, or philosophically for me, this is what I think it is, and this is how I choose to define it, so...
And I think
it's really hard.
I mean, honestly, you've seen philosophers come up with anything. There are philosophers with tons of contradicting views that have been respected because they are able to reason with it. They're able to like explain it, and I think that's what Ms. Cotton's trying to have us do is like
provide a reasoning.
Right. Whether you like with Brian in that first group discussion we talked about is like he was talking about how he believes that he has a purpose in life and God gave it to him. Well, great. And that's awesome. And nobody will disrespect that. But give a reason, like why. And honestly, some people can live their whole lives without a reason. Yeah. Some people can live a whole life because that's how they were raised. But this couple of weeks that we have with Connor is like, it's your fish.
It's in the other tank.
Okay. Is like
my mom thought the same thing.
Telling us why.
I haven't fed it in 3 days.
She's killing our fish.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard. It's difficult. It's complex. Like, it's so complex that to break it down is even more difficult because you're like, there's just so much. I don't know if I should just blanket statement cover this because I've never studied philosophy, or if I should really in-depth BS my way through it.
Right. just shoot our shot somewhere. Hope it hits the target. But I think, honestly, our whole thing is just going to be...
It's a philosophy. It's just like, it should be based on opinion and reason, but a reasonable opinion. So I'm like, I don't know.
You're like, yeah,
do you want my real opinion, or do you want like rock solid evidence and somebody else's opinion?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like mix that together.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm like, well, I don't know. It's just really hard. And like some of the questions are easy to answer. Others are like, I don't know.
Where do I even start?
The hardest thing for me is research, because I have no idea who to use for research. Like, that Britannica one has been pretty cool, but I'm kind of reaching the limits of it. Like, it's almost out of philosophers because I have decided not to cover a lot of them because they talk about God. And I don't know how to cover that topic.
I've been trying to, like, find different philosophers, because, like, in my first one I used Socrates, Descartes, I believe that's
Rene
how you
Descartes,
say it.
yeah.
Descartes, I always mess that up. And another one. And so, like, all of these philosophies, like, they align with what these guys are saying, but I'm like, okay, try and find a different philosopher.
But, yeah, like, the other thing, too, is that, there's so many philosophers, but I feel like Aristotle, Plato, Rene Descartes, Jean Locke, or Locke, or whatever his name is, like, dude, they are the ones that are, like, covering the meat and potatoes of epistemology and of metaphysics and logic, and so I'm like, well, like, I'm gonna use them because they are some of the more prominent names in philosophy, but at the same time, I want to use, like, the underdog a little bit, but I'm like, I don't know.
I did one, so maybe the other two won't be, but, they kind of paved the way for philosophy. I always say psychology, every video.
It's a PH. It's the PH.
The P's. It's a PS, actually. I don't know what's
like in contemporary philosophy and in modern philosophy, it's, like, really hard to like, you know, like the way, whatever, like, it's really hard to separate. The milk from the way. Yeah, because you're like, this is good, this is rock solid evidence and theories, and then you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you theorized on this and you got credit for it because I have no idea what you're saying. And, like, I think that one of the philosophers even talks about how, like, the limit, something about, like, interpretation is a huge problem, and, like, I guess, like, finding common grounds on language and stuff, because you're reading you're reading stuff from, like, biblical times, and you're comparing it to people how we talk now, and you're like, there's a lot that's missed, and I feel like in different interpretations of the Bible, stuff is missed, like in the King James version versus Old Hebrew, it's different.
Definitely. Like, here, so his idea of truth, it says, this, however, raises issues about the relationship of language to the word and what adequacy consists in. Like, if this is how Lebanese, I believe that's how, I don't know, I might be mispronouncing it. This is how he used it, and he used the subject and predicate, but then, what about, this questions all of subject and predicate. How do we know this is for real? It's just like an endless, like what Miss Connor said on her PowerPoint. It's endless regress.
And, like, even in that, because he said that he theorizes the subject and predicate, but, like, if your subject is your predicate, then it's true, right? Mm-hmm. So he said the sky is blue, but without using sight senses, you wouldn't know the sky is blue. Yeah. So you have to use sensory.
Yeah, no, so agreed.
So it's like, yes, that's true, but that also, in saying that, you have to be able, how do you prove that the subject is a predicate without your senses? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and this guy's actually, he's a rationalist. So that's another thing that I've been having problems with, is you talked about,
like philosophy is
you talked about you talked about modern philosophy, like all of those different types of people, and then I think, do you automatically define one group of, like, define every field, or I don't know. I was thinking, like, should I define all of the rationalists and then go in depth on what this philosopher is saying, or should I just honestly jump in?
A lot of my problem too is that it says, like, blah 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 philosopher, and then it says, like, some random word that obviously describes or categorizes them, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. So, therefore, I don't know if I should use this. Because there's so much to philosophy. Like, it's not just, alright, here's the 56,000 philosophers, here's all their theories, and all of the branches broken down. It's like, jumbled up craziness, and modern and contemporary, and priori, and non-priori, and rationalism, and different branches of knowledge, and you're like,
no.
Yeah. It's very overwhelming.
It is. It's very overwhelming. And it's like,
I don't know.
I want to do philosophy justice, but there's no way I possibly can. Like, there's so much stuff to cover. What am I supposed to do? Well, in the general thing of, and the general topic of what is epistemology.
Yeah.
Okay. Look at all these different types of theories.
Yeah, that's why,
all these different theories
saying, like,
in theories.
I'm between saying, all right, blanket statement that generally covers everything with enough meat and potatoes to satisfy, or completely in-depth, hours and hours of research, bit by bit, piece by piece, full-length, 10,000-page essay.
That's
so
where I'm at.
Alright, I'm just gonna do like the middle. I'm gonna find the middle where I'm gonna do some blanket statement, meat and potatoes, but I'm also gonna do some in-depth research, and I'm just gonna make like a medium-sized freaking essay.
Yeah,
because there's just way too much. Like, I cannot even. You can't. Like, there's no way you can physically or mentally comprehend everything in physics in a month.
Look at this. Look at this.
Or in the next 10 weeks. 6
weeks.
These,
like, one article on one philosopher in itself is like 20 pages long. And we're trying to do 3 different philosophers and our own philosophy and
I think that's my biggest problem, is that the research is just very extensive.
It is. It's extensive, and it's also, you don't know what extent to go to. Because you know that you want to explain it, but you don't know how in-depth.
I don't want to get so carried away that, like, okay, like, let's say I start going off on, like, this rampage on Plato and justification, and then I'm like, but I don't want it to distract the reader from, like, what the point I'm trying to make in this essay.
Same.
So I'm like, I'm just going to go
because I get distracted by reading these.
I'm going to give some commentary, some explanation, and I'm going to move on. Like, if I went off on that tangent, then the reader would totally be just distracted, because I'm distracted.
Right. Reading these articles, they go off on the tangents, and you're like, okay, what?
Well,
I'm trying to figure this out.
What pisses me off is that, like, in every article, they subcategorize every philosophy, every theory.
Right.
And you're like, but they're, like, no two articles are the same. No two theories are the same either. But, like, the articles are extremely different. It's not like, alright, this is a philosopher. Here was his theory on knowledge and epistemology. Here's his theory on religion and metaphysics. And you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, alright, I don't know.
Yeah, because, like, even here, like, how it furthers, so, by claiming for every predicate that there's that is true of a subject, there must be a set of other true predicates which is constitute of sufficient reason for its being true. This he calls the principle of sufficient reason. So, like, then it goes into foundation,
like, there's not
reason,
just subject
notation.
predicate, now there's sufficient reason, and then you have foundation, and then you have reason, and then you have impossible...
Right, so it says, for why things are the way they are, and are not otherwise. This is why he uses words like that. And why they would... So, he argues that the universe would not make any sense, and science and philosophy would both be impossible if this isn't true.
And then then it goes on to talking about Caesar. And you're like, alright, I'm
not on this philosopher, right?
You're like, okay, like, it's just, I don't know. I think that philosophies and theories of philosophers should be, I don't know, it's not doing them justice. The research extent is like, I want to do them such better justice because they put, like, a whole life dedication to this, but I'm like, there's no way. Like, I
feel like I'm drowning in it.
I've never studied philosophy. No, that's why I'm like, I can't do it all. I have to just, like, make a medium-sized essay because this is nuts. I would be doing, like, that outline twice over if I had to do it.
You saw that I had already done my first topic twice over. Like, it's just too extensive, and I'm only grazing what this guy thinks. Like, I feel like I'm not doing his justice. I'm just gonna graze it
because if you do, like, go into everything he thought, it's just, you'll be here forever.
Because but like,
the other thing with Connor is that, like, one of the research, or one of the philosophers I was looking at, like, he had a theory about what he thought, and then it was like, but then a year later he disproved it, and then so this was his new theory, but then 5 years later somebody else disproved it, so he made a new theory, and this is what it is. So I'm like, I don't want to know Aristotle's 50 different philosophies. I just want to know what he thought at the end of his life. What was the most recent philosophy?
At the end of the day, what this guy come up with? Yeah, same. No, but I was also saying
that's just how they did it. Like,
right. But this is like what Miss Connor said. It's an infinite regress because you talk about the subject predicate. Well, what is a subject? What is a predicate? Well, this has to do with language. But what about language? What is language? How do we know language? How are we communicating?
It's just so nuts.
And it's just like you go back and back and back, and you're like, I know nothing. That's my last conclusion. I'm just gonna type that and send it in.
I'm just using, honestly, I'm 100% honest with you. I'm basic, like, his most basic sentences I could come with using, like, you know, words of my age, but I'm like, okay.
You're trying to simplify it.
Yeah, I'm gonna simplify it, and if, like, I could go extensive to it, but this is not the purpose.
But that's hard to do. Like, for you, mad props for that. Because if you simplify it after reading it, taking it in, retaining it, and paraphrasing it,
yeah.
that's hard. That's a hard thing to do, and that's what we're trying to do here.
I'm not doing it extensive because I could copy and paste a million different things on what they like and cite, obviously, but you know.
See, like with me, I was trying to paraphrase what this guy was saying about subject and predicate, and I was like, I need to get this in quotations for
sometimes
research.
You need more, and so like I use research all the time, but then later, like in my commentary, I'm like, so basically this is what he said and what he believed, and so I'm compared to my philosophy, this is what I do or don't believe, and contrary to what I believe, he believes this, and then I go on to the next one.
Understood.
Because I'm not going to sit there and do that. The research is just ridiculously extensive.
Well, we're going to try and take on this,
Here's the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, we're going to grab the bull by the horns and probably get taken down by it, but we're going to try our hardest.
We're going to give it our best shot, and we're going to be philosophers for 6 weeks.
Right, okay.
Have a nice night.